What do you say about Mike Cochran? Well, I have some prepared remarks, but, you know, I mean, Texas Newspaper Foundation Hall of Fame, all the books that he's written. I'm not going to reiterate them. They'll go through some of those in my remarks, but he's been a friend for 35 years. He spent the night in the publisher of the Star-Telegram's bed, Phil Meek, many years before. I'm sure Sandra doesn't know that. They both got drunk out at the lake. There's just so many incredible stories to tell about this guy. And it was absolutely one of the highlights of my career when he and I got together and agreed that he would retire after 44 years at Associated Press and come to work at the Star-Telegram. And I told him we're going to win a Pulitzer. And I think we would have if not for some health issues and Knight Ridder not selling Philadelphia, St. Paul, and San Jose. If they'd have sold those damn three papers, Knight Ridder still exists today. Instead, we've got McClatchy. And I think the best thing that ever happened in the newspaper business was public ownership. Worst thing that ever happened in the newspaper business was public ownership. You're witnessing it today. I got to be there in the early part when it was great, but it's not great anymore. So, Mike, it is really my pleasure. It's my honor to be here tonight and to say a few words about you. And I had my dear friend Mike Blackman, who was the former editor and editorial page editor of the Star-Telegram and has been a long time editor for Mike Cochran. And they would go out together, and one of them, you know, couldn't hear, and the other couldn't walk, but together they made a hell of a team. And so I said, help me, Mike. And John Lumpkin, the other one, who wrote the nomination for Mike's admission to the Texas Newspaper Hall of Fame Foundation. But so now I'm going to go to my prepared remarks. And as Mike said, as I sit down to pen these memories, I must admit to shortchanging him, as his life, his career, far exceeds any words that I can put down on paper to share with you fine folks. Cochran has always been known since turning in his first story for the Abilene Reporter-News in the late 1950s and the early 60s to his tenured career with the Associated Press as a roustabout. Someone who could always play as hard as he worked, or perhaps work as hard as he played. You know, Cochran, even without his first name, and I love this, all it has ever taken to awaken notoriety, indeed, the respect and admiration of those inside and even outside the news business, is his last name, Cochran. Because over the years, it's been this name on a byline that let others know that whatever story he was covering, be it a small story or a local intrigue or a national tragedy like the John F. Kennedy assassination, it would be good, decent, objective, and elegantly composed. But above all, truthful in his own West Texas style, elegant, always elegant. Stories that, as the saying goes, leap off the page to give readers a greater perspective of the events unfolding around them. The Chinese have a saying, may you live in interesting times. Cochran certainly has. In his almost 60 years of journalism, first and foremost as a newspaper man, always a newspaper man, and also as a very accomplished author, Cochran has covered almost every aspect of the late 20th and early 21st centuries. From the tragedies of the assassinations and attacks on our country, that fateful day in 2001, to local stories of intrigue like the infamous Cullen Davis trials, and even biographies like that of the nationally known gambler Doyle Brunson, the world's greatest poker player and gambler. He has informed, educated, and beguiled the public. And perhaps above all, are the stories he wrote on the Apollo space missions of the 60s from the now so-called Johnson Space Center in Houston, giving an exquisite narrative to America's exploration of the last frontier. Stories that encapsulated our nation's place in history with a sense of wonder and possibility that extended above what Ronald Reagan called the surly bonds of earth. Of course, there are many stories that many in this room could readily share about his professional exploits of the great Mike Cochran, such as the mission he embraced with gusto in between his reporting assignments for the AP hospitality suites at various conventions of the AP subscribers. In fact, he was voted the permanent host of perhaps the longest-standing such meeting in the Texas AP managing editors, the APME. The problem was that it was a national convention that he had to once cover in San Antonio of the broadcasters in the 1970s. He needed to do double duty and cover the speaker and report on it for AP. Huffing, he did, and then made a beeline to the AP suite. He had stocked and cracked open his inventory. As a senior AP executive said at the time, it was like a super tanker taking on crude. But nothing speaks as much to the man that he is than that of his family. Looking around, I see Sandra, who's brought him such pride and joy, and the children who I wish could have been here tonight to grow into adulthood that have made him so proud. His daughter and son-in-law who have added immensely to his joy. His grandchildren, one of them who will take his place this fall at West Point, and obviously they don't do background checks beyond the parent. And above all, his wife Sandra of 60 years. Through all of his career, it's been Sandra whose strength, patience, encouragement, and fortitude that have allowed Cochran to be more than he ever could on his own. Sweet and unassuming Sandra, this award is as much as yours as it is his, because he, before any other, would readily give you credit for not just the journalist he is, but the man he is. In closing, I ask you to join me in showing your thanks and applause to a man who has made journalism in Texas, in reality, journalism in our nation, much of what it is today, in an industry too often today noted for its lack of nobility. It is good to reflect on those that to this day whose name is equated with the best in journalism. From all of us, Mike, I say congratulations. Thank you.